Hey guys, welcome to my Gears Tactics review for the PC. Now let me say, if you're someone who loves the gruesome gore of the Gears series and the turn-based tactics and strategy of games such as XCOM, then you're going to have a good time with Xbox's newest turn-based tactics game. I must admit early on though, although this game does have some big flaws which I'll get into later on, for the first attempt into a turn-based tactics genre for the Gears of War series, Gears Tactics does do a great job of being the starting point, and I hope that many Gears of War fans who've never played this type of genre will be more enticed to now try it out and try other turn-based games because of this series. So anyway, let's jump right into the review. Firstly, let's start with the audio and graphics for Gears Tactics. Honestly, the graphics here are great. It looks clean. The cutscenes look nice. Environments give off this war-torn vibe which fits the gritty overall feeling that this world offers. There are a load of graphics options for you to increase or decrease the graphics depending on your machine's strength. I don't know what the graphics are like on Xbox since I played on PC, but if they're half as good as what's on here, then it should be fine. Like most Gears of War games of the past, Gears Tactics also has that extreme gore factor, which we all know and love for this series, because it has been implemented well into Gears Tactics. You'll still be able to see that intense gore as you cut, stab, rip apart your enemies, and it's here that Gears Tactics is the most satisfying to watch. The only graphical issues I had was one extremely minor graphical bug with the option to make a unit's helmet disappear. However, when you wanted to hide this helmet, sometimes it would bug out and keep showing the unit wearing this helmet even though I had turned the option off. The other was whenever you started up a cutscene to begin one of the side missions mainly, sometimes the lighting would be off and characters would look kind of janky. Other than that though, there were no real major issues or bugs with this game. Frame rate was pretty stable as well. Not only are the graphics great though, but the audio that comes along with it is great too. The sound of you starting up your chainsaw as it rips through an enemy's torso brought back memories of my Gears of War 2 campaign from ages ago. It almost brought a tear to my eye to see and hear my characters ripping up locusts with a sense of nostalgia rising in me. Ambient sounds are great too here. The soundtrack is a little lacking, however, what we got was great and I enjoyed listening to it. Next, moving on to the bread and butter of all turn-based tactics games, the gameplay. Now, I'll say this here, Gears Tactics definitely adds a fresh flavour to this type of game genre with its iconic gameplay, but it also lacks rather heavily too in other aspects as well. However, I want to start off with the good first before I get into the negative. Firstly, if you've ever played a turn-based tactics game, you should be familiarised with the UI and the game control layout, as it's not so different here from other ones. You'll control up to 4 characters, give them orders to hide behind cover, or not, depending on how you play, and you will use a variety of different abilities to defeat your enemies in front of you. Everything ranging from using your traditional Overwatch ability to shoot enemies that enter your unit's range as they move, to actual traditional Gears of War style executions being performed in-game, which when done can give your whole team an extra AP boost. This is where Gears Tactics shines the most and in my opinion differentiates from others of the same genre, is these execution and melee based abilities are amazing. Most of the time other TBT games, you'll be too scared to send in your units to melee an enemy. But here, it's the most rewarding when you get right up in the enemy's face and lance them through the gut. It's a great time and I had a lot of fun turning locust hordes into little bits of chunks. The AI here is also mostly competent at times. It will rush up on your flank and use its Overwatch ability on your characters to keep them pinned while firing at you from another direction with another enemy character. It's because of this that this game does pose a fair challenge at times and you'll be satisfied with this level of difficulty. Of course, there's always 1 or 2 cases of the AI being stupid, like this clip I'll show where it uses an Overwatch ability on the base of the stairs, but it was a rare case of the AI, and most of the time it is competent and will apply the rules it has been given in the right situation. Now, moving on to the characters' classes. There's 4 different ones. You have your traditional support class, vanguard, scout, and sniper. Most of you should be familiarized with these by now if you played this genre before. There's also a fairly detailed skill tree here, and depending on your characters and their assigned class, you can usually build your character in a choice of 4 different directions. For example, you can turn your vanguard into a more tanky unit to soak up damage, or go more along the lines of building him in a more damage-oriented role. You can also choose skills that will benefit meleeing and executions, which is nice to see, given those people who actually want to rush in with a chainsaw will have more benefits because of this. Overall, it's nothing mind-blowing, nothing amazing has been done here. However, it does work well for the game they have built. There's also a fair number of customizations in this game, everything from changing a character's face and hair, to colouring that character's armour or giving them a specific gun camo. Once again, this kind of customization should be standard and is nothing mind-blowing, but it's still nice to see here, so I will mention it. However, I would like to see a bit more hair types, but it makes sense to see this type of hairstyle, considering it is a wartime, so most of them should be generalized in this sort of fashion. It should be noted though, you can't change the main character's look and design too much since they're not random created characters. Finally, before I get onto the negatives for this game, I just want to touch on the final positive point for this, which is the story, which for what we got, I had a great time. You'll follow the story of Gabe, a man who's been assigned a mission to track and kill a dangerous locust, who is a serious threat to the COG. With the limited resources though he has, Gabe must build up his strength and recruit/salvage weapons and equipment like you do in other XCOM games to have a fighting chance. As the story goes on, you'll find more characters to recruit, and you'll get these through side missions too that require you to go and save some trap gears, who will then join your roster after successfully saving them. It was also nice to see Chairman Prescott come back from the Gears series and to see another side of him. You don't just see that ambitious leader inspiring hope into his troops, but instead you see more of an asshole who just barks orders, and as the story goes on, well, I won't spoil anything, but you'll find out. Now, if this was just it for the review, the game would be great. But sadly, Gears Tactics has some pretty big flaws in my opinion, and the game does suffer heavily from them. Firstly, this game needs more than one way to play a mission. And what I mean by that is every single mission in this game without fail is just run in and kill the locust. There's practically no stealth in this TBT game-like style. So the moment you deploy for a mission, enemies know where you are. You can't sneak up your troops on them, deploy them in vantage points, and then take them out stealthily. The instant you begin, enemies pretty much already know where you are. So as soon as one comes into your line of sight, the fight begins and they'll all swarm you. Now, I'm sure someone's going to say that the Scout class has the ability to turn invisible for one turn, but that kind of stealth can only really be used when combat has already begun, and you mainly only use that ability when you need to breach an enemy's overwatch and get behind them. Besides, there's not really any other point to it. You can't really use it to get out of combat and then sneak around all the way behind them and then ambush them / wait for them. It's basically just immunity for one turn and that's it. This game, in my opinion, severely lacks because there's not really any strategy when it comes to deployment / stealth. The second problem, and an even bigger problem than the first, is the side quests in this game are extremely repetitive and boring by nature. Basically, side quests can be broken down into 3 types. You need to go and rescue 2 gear units trapped in torture pods. You need to go and hold down 2 locations for a certain amount of turns while defending these positions from hordes. And finally, you must run across the map from one end to the other, collecting equipment cases, all the while avoiding an airstrike from the locust each turn. These side quests barely, if at all, change throughout the entire game. You will do the exact same missions on fairly repetitive maps, hold the exact same 2 positions, or go and save 2 people from the exact same torture pods, or just run through the map away from the exact same bombardments. The only thing that really changes throughout these side quests is that the game thinks it's a good idea for some unknown reason to restrict how many units you can deploy, to try and make these side quests harder, if you will. And there are other requirements as well, like some of them might restrict the use of equipment such as grenades not being allowed to be used on this map, etc, etc. In my opinion, this is an extremely cheap way to increase the difficulty for a mission, as some side quests you can only deploy 1 unit and must face a massive amount of enemies. Their excuse that they give you is it's meant to be a covert operation and that's why you can't send more than 1 or 2 units. But this is a completely stupid reason, since every time you do a side quest, you can't stealth past them because there's no stealth in this game really, and you need to have a massive fight in the first place, fundamentally defeating the purpose of sending only 1 unit in the first place. I mean, if there's going to be a fight anyway, just let me bring some more goddamn people to make it easier. This, in my opinion, is extremely bad game design, and frankly, I utterly hated it, and it pissed me off having to follow these stupid restrictions they put on you. Like, I didn't spend hours grinding certain characters only to have the game then say, oh, you must choose one of these characters and that is it. Now, maybe I could have forgiven this if it was a bit more along the lines that I could have ignored side quests completely, but no, they're completely forced onto you. It is literally impossible to proceed in this story if you do not complete a certain amount of side quests beforehand. And this comes into maybe the biggest problem I have with this game, which is how utterly short this story is, which while great, it is completely, really short. I've got maybe 5 hours total from the story. That's just the story alone, which is a shame because like I said before, I did enjoy this story. Not only that, but this game also lacks having those massive boss battles. Now, when you get to those actual boss battles, those big ones I'm talking about, like fighting a Corpser or a Brumac, they're great, they're fun. Those are massive battles I enjoy. However, there's only 3 big boss battles in this entire game, maybe due to how short the story is, which is a massive shame because I wish I had more chances to fight these massive behemoths. The only reason why this game will take you maybe 10 to 20 hours to complete is by the fact that they fill it out by forcing you to complete side quests, like I said before. And worse is that this game intentionally increases the amount of these garbage side quests you have to complete as the story goes on. For example, it goes something like this. Complete 1 story mission, then complete 1 side quest. Then complete 1 story mission, then complete 2 side quests. Then complete 1 side or maybe 2 story missions, then complete 3 side missions. Rinse and repeat, you have the Gears Tactics story in a nutshell. I mean, could it have hurt them at least to change the side quests a little? Like, instead of capturing and holding only 2 points every single time, couldn't we have at least gotten 3 capture points or something just to change the side missions up? It was, to me, the game suffers heavily due to this. Actually, I also just remembered another negative point as well. When it comes to leveling up characters, it's probably best just to focus on using the main characters and ignore custom built characters altogether. A lot of the missions will force you to use the main characters, basically leaving out the majority of your custom ones. And not only that, in the last mission, you can't even bring along any characters that are custom, making them all useless. Not only that, there's no point in getting attached to them as they level up relatively slowly, and even when heavily used, at some point another custom character will come along of the same class and it will be at a higher level, making your old custom character redundant as a superior version of it has come along. At least in XCOM, they alleviated this problem by having new recruits starting off at a base level, so they don't supersede your current characters. But here, it just feels like the moment a better custom character comes along, you'll just replace your old one and just recruit the new one. Anyway guys, enough rambling. It's time for me to give my final verdict. So the final verdict for Gears Tactics is a 6 out of 10. You know, I was going to give this game a 7 out of 10, a good game. However, after mentioning all the flaws I just did, I decided that this game is actually a 6, which is an above average game. This game definitely has its positives. Visually and graphically, audio, those are all amazing. Combat for the most part feels great, and the gore and violence Gears is known for has been brought to life in a TBT style genre, and although short, the story was great as well. Although the flaws of this game being mainly the extremely repetitive nature of the side quests, and worse, being forced to play them over and over and over again, the extreme short nature of the great story that I wanted more of, custom characters feeling obsolete after 1 or 2 missions by newer ones that will come along and you will just replace the old ones, and the fact that this game thinks restricting how many characters you can deploy is a great way to ramp up the difficulty just feels cheap and ruins that 7 or even 8 out of 10 I wanted to give this game. And it's because of these flaws, I can't actually justify it being marketed at full price either. I highly suggest you pick this game up with Xbox's Game Pass subscription and then cancelling it after you've completed the game, instead of paying full price for this, as I feel like it's only a $30 game. So overall, this game does have some flaws, some big flaws in my opinion, but to me, this is still a great first attempt, and it acts as a solid foundation for which they can build upon and make bigger and better Gears TBT games in the future, which I'm actually kind of looking forward to if they do fix some of the problems. So with some tweaks to like the side quests, custom characters, and a longer story, the next entry into this series could be great. And if and when it does come, I'll be sure to pick it up then and review it as well. Anyway guys, thanks for watching. Goodbye.